The biggest opportunity is in using chemical recycling raw materials. Brazil is a fast-growing but very pragmatic polyurethane market. Innovation only works if it makes economic sense from day one.
Welcome to Polycast by UT, the podcast from Urethanes Technology International, where we talk markets, business and big trends across the polyurethane industry. I'm delighted to be joined today by Audrey Silva Russo, an R&D manager for Purcom Química in Sao Paulo, Brazil. With nearly 2 decades of experience in the polyurethane industry, Audrey was recognised as Personality of the Year at the FAPUR PU conference in 2024, and her paper Usage of Bio-based Polyols in the Manufacture of Truck Floor Mats was recognised with an award at the CPI conference last year. Her expertise extends beyond the development of renewable source polyols, and she has been researching and developing chemical recycling routes for all the segments of polyurethane, along with formulating PU systems tailored to clients across a raft of sectors. It's an impressive CV. A very big welcome to the podcast today, Audrey, to you.
Thank you for having me, Stephen. I feel very honored to be here today.
It's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. We're going to be talking about the technical reality behind sustainable polyurethane, what innovation looks like in Brazil, and how Audrey has built her career in a part of the chemicals industry that is still very male dominated. So I'll start at the beginning. Where else? Polyurethane is quite a specific corner of the chemicals world. So Audrey, what first drew you into the industry? When did you realize this was where you wanted to build your career?
Well, I cannot deny that I was very much influenced by my dad. For those of you who may not know, Gerson Silva, who is a very respected professional in the polyurethane industry and has more than 40 years of experience, is my dad. And he's been my mentor and also someone who I really admire, and it's been an inspiration for me. And it's funny because as a kid, I remember thinking he was a scientist. Then I became a teenager and I started to think that he manufactured mattresses, because in our family trips, he also arranged some time to go to mattresses store to see the trends and to see what each country is doing in this segment. And he's been very much active in this segment as well. Just when I entered college and started my internship, that was the time when I realized what he really did as a job.
Yeah.
And when I started to see this industry through my own eyes and saw like how diversified is this industry and the challenges and the opportunities, is where I started to sharing the same passion as him. And that's when I found my professional purpose.
Did it shape as well? I mean, being around things like chemistry and engineering from a young age, did that kind of shape how you saw your own education, your own future? Because, you know, you hear a lot of kids these days that they're not going into engineering. There's a sort of real shortage of people going into the sort of chemical R&D engineering areas. Being around that must have really shaped who you became.
Well, I think so, because at least when I was in college, polyurethane industry wasn't so much talked about. So I remember being with my friends in college and thinking about our future, where we wanted to work, and like it was everybody's dream to work in Petrobras, which is a huge oil company from Brazil. But we also had some people talking about the cosmetic market and pharmaceutical market and painting market, which is huge. But no one was talking really about the plastic market, not only in polyurethane, but it's a huge market. And um, it's very uh, it's not so much spoken in colleges.
Mm,
So as I grew up seeing my dad work in this industry, for sure it helped to open up my mind. So it was very important for me.
absolutely. And you've now spent more than a decade in polyurethane research and development. You joined Purcom Química in 2011. When you look back at those early years, what were the kind of the biggest lessons you learnt about working in a systems house environment?
Well, I would say about people, um, the first advice that I could give is surround yourself with people who you truly admire, whose opinions you respect, and who push you to grow. Um, because if you're surrounded by excellence, you will continue to raise your own expectations, and you try your best to improve and get better. So that's one huge advice that I would give.
Yeah. So I mean, for people that are sort of people listening to this podcast who may not work directly in formulation or systems development, how would you describe what your job really involves on a day-to-day basis?
Well, I would say my job is divided in two roles. One of them is innovation, and the other one is leadership. Talking about the innovation part, well, I work very closely to the development of polyurethane systems formulations, um, with like along among all the chain. So the development of sustainable raw materials and the development of chemical recycling routes. All of them starts in lab, but it also goes to customer.
Yeah.
And talking about the leadership role, um, okay, I have a part that manage all the teams, like the R&D team, the technical assistance team, the labs, and also the application center. But I would say that in the leadership task, one of my main uh, one of the most
Mm,
important tasks that I have is defining and helping Purcom to understand well where will we be in the next I don't
yeah.
know 3 or 5 years, um, like seeing the trends and prioritizing some innovations and really understanding
Mm,
how we can remain relevant and be seen as uh, innovative and sustainable, because it's in our DNA to be this company, and how we can achieve the company's goals and
mhm.
everything we want to be in the future.
And I mean, R&D can mean many things. In one company, it can be very customer led. In another company, it can be very highly exploratory. Um, then, if you're in a difficult economy, as we are now, companies might even reduce their annual spend on R&D. Others see that as the time to start investing in it to differentiate and get ahead. So in your role, I mean, how do you balance technical innovation, which is obviously what you're driving for all the time, with the commercial realities of cost scale up of any of these projects, customer expectations? How do you balance that?
Well, it's a constant balance. But in short term, I would say that companies reach for results. But in long term, we need to invest in research and development so that we can remain relevant in the future. So it's very much important to invest. Really, it's not a cost; it's an investment for your company surviving in the future. So I would say that I can give a huge example. In Purcom, we started researching about biopolyols, I don't know, maybe 20 years ago. At that time, it wasn't worth it to launch it because the prices of petroleum-based polyols were more attractive and more competitive than the biopolyols. But
Sure.
then the COVID happened,
Yes.
and and our entire supply chain uh, became unstable. So we didn't have availability. The freight
Mm.
costs went like increased so much, and we had so many issues in our supply chain that we were forced. Uh, it accelerated a lot this launch. So
Mm.
we were ready at that time to launch it. So we could, at that time, we had, I don't know, maybe 10 products. But nowadays we have a whole line of more than 70 different types of biopolyols in our line. And this was only possible because we were investing in research and development of
Mm.
biopolyols for the last 20 years.
Yeah.
If we hadn't, we wouldn't be ready. And more than that, we would be very much behind because after COVID, it started not only a sustainability demand, but people and industries started to understand
Mm.
that it's very important to have a local um, option, and it became a lot, very much competitive compared to the petroleum-based polyols.
Yeah.
So it, I think it was a very, very good strategy
Mm.
thinking about the future of our company, and now we are very strong on that.
Are there particular markets or application markets there where they are embracing biopolyols more readily?
Well, I would say, talking about Brazilian market, I would say that automotive and appliance markets um, are more open to that because they have a stronger regulation pressure for that,
Yeah.
and so they have KPIs on that. So uh, I believe these markets have understood that this is not optional anymore. This is a reality. So they are
Absolutely.
much ahead from the other markets.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And that brings us quite nicely actually onto the CPI, the paper that you submitted for the CPI, which was an area of your work which has drawn a lot of attention. Sustainability, obviously, very important for your company. The development of bio-based and bio-circular materials, and your project involved polyols used for truck mats or acoustic carpet applications. So for listeners who may not know the project, can you explain a little bit about the project and what you set out to achieve with it, and why that's a good candidate for a sustainable formulation?
Well,
A
thank
lot of
you.
questions there, sorry.
This was about manufacturing truck floor mats by using biocircular polyol. Actually, it's more than that. It's how we transformed post-consuming vegetable oils used to cook our French fries and hamburgers and all this junk food we eat in a raw material for the automotive industry. In this specifically project, we were able to replace 71% of petroleum-based polyol to biocircular polyol. And with that, we could achieve 56% of bio content in the polyol side, which resulted in 85% of reduction in CO2 emissions in the polyol side. So it's quite a lot. While, of course, maintaining all the properties that were specified by the automakers and maintaining all the processability. We This was one of the first projects that we used biocircular polyols. And this specifically happened in this application because the customer is very open to innovation and sustainability. So it was a very good partnership. He really believed in the project, and after we did it, he presented it to European market. So he's doing a lot of jobs in Europe because of our results in this specifically project.
Okay.
And one thing that I think it's very important to say is that some years ago, when we talked about biopolyols or even biocircular polyols, people would think about having a poorer quality product. And that's not true anymore. We've evolved a lot through these years. So you have to have in mind that the backbone of biopolyol is totally different from the backbone of a polyether polyol made from EO and PO. But that doesn't mean it's better or worse. It means that for replacing a petroleum-based polyol, you will need maybe more than one or a combination of biopolyols to achieve the same result. And of course, optimizing your formulation, maybe using different catalyst or a different surfactant or changing the index. But you can achieve any property you want, and you can also have a very good quality product. So it's very important to say that, because some people are much stuck in the past results, and that's not true anymore.
So in the past, you think you mentioned there may be combining two different bio-based polyols together. Is that to reach the same properties that you would have reached with a petroleum-based polyol? And are we now at a stage where we can actually improve properties of the final product?
Yes, we can improve properties from the final product. You can have finer cells. You can have a better compression set. It depends on what you want. I'm saying you may have to combine polyols because the chemical structure is different. So sometimes you'll need higher functionality polyol, but you also have a viscosity limitation. So maybe combining two polyols is the best solution. But what's very important to understand is that you can achieve any property you want. Having a sustainable material nowadays, it's totally possible, while improving or getting same properties as you need in the petroleum-based products.
And in terms of the bio content, because I think did you mention 56% bio content? So is the reason that it can't be 100%, because I know it's possible, but I mean, is the reason that they don't go to 100% based on properties, or is it based on cost of the bio polyol?
Well, for you to have 100, you can only achieve with castor oil and use it like totally, because it's the only polyol, it's the only natural oil that comes with OH numbers from the nature.
Right.
So if you use soy oil or cashew nut or any other, you'll have to use other materials, a glycol or any other materials. It's not 100%, you know?
Right.
That's
and the route you take, is that what's the route you take, and why do you favor that route?
Well, the answer is not, I just use much more than one route. It depends on what I want. And sometimes I use combinations of routes. So sometimes I epoxidate and then I esterificate. Sometimes it depends on if I want primary hydroxyl groups, or the functionality that I want, or the molecular weight that I want, or sometimes I can use epoxidation and then imidation. So it depends a lot on what I need as properties and as a
Yeah.
final product.
I understand. And when we talk about biocircular, because of bio-based, you're ending up with the same product with not necessarily an end of life solution. Is the end of life factored in when we talk about biocircularity, and that, you know, these truck mats, for example, they would be recycled at the end of their life?
Yes, one thing has nothing to do with the other. Like, it's totally possible to recycle something that came from biocircular polyol or biopolyol or petroleum-based polyol. So one thing has nothing to do with the other. When we say biopolyols, we mean that it comes from renewable source. When we say biocircular, it means that it came from a renewable source in its end of life. So used cooking oil, for example. And when we say recycled, we m- we s- we understand that it's something that achieved its end of life, then it becomes a raw material again. So it's something
I
that we use
understand.
chemical recycling to obtain.
Right, I understand. Um, I enjoyed the paper very much, actually, and when I was reading it, and it described the truck floor mat as a multi-layer acoustic system. I wondered how much of that sound attenuation comes from the foam, or how much is due to the thickness of the mat, or I think there's a protective film, isn't there, as well? So how much of that sound attenuation comes from the foam?
Well, the foam will absorb the high frequency sound, and the elastomer or the rubber, it depends on the mat, will absorb the low frequency sounds. And the protective film is just decorative, so it doesn't have a sound uh, uh, improvement.
Excellent. And beyond truck floor mats, I mean, can the same chemistry, or are you applying the same chemistry to other areas like carpet backing or other acoustic parts under the bonnet of a truck or a car?
Yes, we have some projects going on, but polyurethane um, is a very versatile material, as we
Mm,
talked about. But he can provide us very good sound properties. So it's always a material that can improve the sound attenuation property.
yeah, I understand. You also have interest in the isocyanate stream um, through your company, and that's obviously a much more challenging um, from a sustainability perspective. And I, in my experience over the last year of this industry, hear increasingly from companies, particularly downstream companies, that make very bold statements that are almost throwaway claims. Things like they've managed to get a bio-based component into the MDI part of the system without really explaining what that means. Um, and I wondered whether you could shed some light for me on what the reality is right now. How close are we to a commercially viable, um, safe bio-based route for MDI?
Oh, well, I'm not a MDI manufacturer, but um, like as a system house, we have some prepolymers that uses biopolyols in the polyol side inside repolymer, which increases the sustainability in the product. But talking about the MDI manufacturers, they have a mass balance approach. Um, they can explain better, but they use they take the monomer uh, again through chemical recycling, And with that, if I'm not wrong, they achieve 60% of reduction in CO2 emissions, if I'm not wrong. So it's an approach.
Mm.
Uh, the I think the biggest challenge in this is how to become more feasible in terms of cost,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's not that competitive nowadays, at least.
Yeah, absolutely. And in the truck mat project, for example, you do actually talk about bio-attributed isocyanate, so mass balance. What does that contribute beyond life cycle analysis benefits? So what does that contribute beyond sort of CO2 reduction? Are there other improvements like density or the profile of the cure, for example?
No, in that particular project, it worked just the same. So no improvements beyond sustainability, but um, no bad results either.
Yeah.
So
Well,
uh,
that's it, and that should be enough, right?
yeah,
That's what we're all trying to achieve, isn't it? Yeah. So based on, I mean, just a general question, really, you've probably touched on this already, but I mean, based on what we're seeing today in the market, where do you see the real commercial opportunities for sustainable polyurethane systems?
well, um, I would say that the biggest opportunity is in using chemical recycling raw materials. And the reason is that, first of all, we reduce the dependency on petroleum, and which is a finite source, and that's not good. But also because uh, currently we are facing a very unstable geographic scenario, um, which is not good. Um, Also, using recycled materials, it's a source that is infinite. So as long as we have human beings, we will generate waste. uh, we give a solution for the waste generation.
Mm,
Also, the cost of waste, disposing waste, is getting higher and higher. So um,
yeah.
you you can achieve a cost reduction by
Mm,
using it and not disposing it. And of course, we have uh, sustainable targets, so everyone is committing in becoming net zero for the in a, in a midterm or long
yeah.
term achievements. But everyone is committing, not only in terms of countries but also in terms of industries. So uh, the only way to reducing CO2 emissions is to act in the scope 3.
Mm,
And um, I would say that one of the most important things is that um, if you, Steven, in UK wants to compete with me, Audrey, here in Brazil, you would have to take my customers' waste. It doesn't matter if it's industrial waste or end-of-life waste, and take it to UK, where it's not feasible because of the density of the foam and the cost of the freight. And then when this waste arrives on UK, you process it and manufacture anything you will provide, and then bring it back to Brazil. So I would be much more competitive than you because I'm closer to the
mm,
waste. So it helps to protect the markets, like locally speaking. So you give a solution and you also are protected. Of course, if you're competing in uh, the same way. And besides that, it's a way of becoming fully circular, like
mm,
really achieving circular economy. So um, among all um, these benefits, I would say that companies are really understanding the value of using recycled materials and are really understanding that we have a shared responsibility and that we need to solve this problem.
Absolutely. So there's almost equal amounts of stick with regulation and legislation and targets and carrot, isn't there? I mean, in terms of, just wanting to do the right thing in terms of sustainability targets and objectives, but also the cost parity as well in terms of using more bio sources and recycled content. So I think there's a good level, a good balance.
I would say that every time we try to use end-of-life products, you will become more competitive than using virgin by polyols or virgin
Yeah.
material. But of course, this is account that that has to make sense for everyone. It's something to think about.
Absolutely. If I can you've mentioned Brazil there a couple of times. How would you describe the polyurethane market in Brazil today? What is very distinctive about it, either in terms of applications or customer demand or where the innovation is coming from?
Well, Brazil is a fast-growing but very pragmatic polyurethane market. Demand is strong in sectors like construction or comfort, furniture, and appliance, but customers are highly cost-sensitive. Innovation only works if it makes economic sense, since from day one.
Yeah.
Well, as we have a lot of availability of renewable source, it creates a real potential for biopolyols, which is good, not only in terms of sustainability, but in terms of costs. But Brazil has a weak point because our regulation is a weak driver compared to Europe or other places, which is
Okay.
not. But we have a lot of opportunity, but we're mainly cost driven.
Yeah. I mean, as you say, I remember from my packaging days, Brazil's had this reputation for bio-based raw materials, the likes of Braskem, obviously, in the sugarcane arena, for example. So there are strategic advantages for developing sustainable solutions there. But as you point out, there may be some barriers as well that kind of stop it from being completely fully realized, I suppose. But how do you see the market in Brazil maybe evolving over the next few years then, in relation to not just sustainability, but maybe some of the key areas like I think you mentioned automotive earlier, maybe construction, appliances. Where are the key growth areas?
Well, I think automotive and appliance are ahead from other industry because they have a stronger regulation. And I also feel that these industries are recognizing the urgency of having alternatives. And unfortunately, construction and comfort industries are currently cost-driven industries in Brazil. So it will take time for them to recognize value in sustainability and innovation.
I understand. And just a final question on Brazil. I mean, do you think that your country is under-recognized internationally as a source of polyurethane innovation, or where do you see Brazil's positioning internationally?
I think we are under-recognized. One huge example is Purcom. I can share at least 3 or 5 big successful projects that we've been working in, which was recognized worldwide. One of them, for instance, we were approached by mask refrigerator manufacturer, which is one of the largest ones in the world. And we did a project where we could recycle a domestic refrigerator and use this recycled polyol in the amount of 40% in a new formulation for domestic refrigerator and inject it in the customer and achieve the exactly same properties and processability. And this was something that this customer that is very big said he was looking for all over the world, and no one could do a test in their facility.
Right.
There were only PowerPoint presentations and lab demonstrations, but nothing in real scale.
Mm.
So we were the first one, and we could um, achieve a very good result and use 40% of this recycled polio. So that means that we are very much ahead in terms of innovation, chemical
Mm.
recycling, and sustainability. I can say that it's in Purcom's DNA to be innovative and sustainable, but we're getting, like, if we were maybe from other parts of the world, we would
Mm.
have more visibility than we have right now, unfortunately.
No, I understand. It's a very interesting project you talk about there. Actually, it's something perhaps we could return to in the magazine in due course. Thank you, Audrey. I also wanted to talk to you before we end the podcast on another important theme, which we've spoken about previously. You've been you've spoken very openly about, and that is the experience of women in the polyurethane industry. Now, you've said that when you first started attending industry events, you felt like a minority, not just as a woman, but as a young woman in the sector. When you look at the industry today, how much has that changed?
Well, nowadays I go to the polyurethane conferences and I can see much more women, um, but mainly in administrative roles such as supply chain or sales or human resources. Not so much when we talk about technical roles or even leadership. Like, I don't see many women in C-level roles in the polyurethane industry.
Yeah.
We've improved, but uh, not as much as I'd like to see.
No, absolutely. Yeah. What do you think companies should be doing differently or better if they want to retain women in maybe in more technical careers?
Well, that's not a simple answer, but I think value them uh, in terms of roles, in terms of salaries,
Yeah.
give them opportunity to grow as well. So uh, I think it's the main point.
Which creates a lasting change, doesn't it? I mean, that's what we want. We don't want sort of, we want it to be something that's becomes a culture within the company, really, don't we?
Yes. When we talk about women in this market that has always been male dominated,
Mm.
one thing that we have to have in mind that we may be evolving. I'm sure of that, but it takes time to change, and it
Yeah.
takes duration to change, and you need to change the culture.
Mm.
And what I mean is that in my grandmother's generation, women didn't work. In my mother's generation, few women
Mm.
worked. And my parents' generation is the generation that is in the leadership roles right now. And in my generation, most women work. So
Yes, true. Yeah.
it had a change of behavior through generations. And in my point of view, it's important to bring visibility to women,
Mm.
to women that are really standing out, because this brings credibility to all of us and will help to shape the future of polyurethane industry. So unfortunately, we still have few women in technical leadership
Mm.
roles, but it's something that by giving opportunities and visibility, it may change, you
Yeah.
know?
Absolutely. I'm forever trying to explain to my daughter how polyurethane is put together and explain the intrinsic natures of the chemistry, hoping that she develops a passion for it from a young age.
I hope so.
But for any younger people listening to this podcast, for example, especially for younger women that are maybe thinking about a career in chemistry, engineering, or polyurethane, is there any advice you would give them?
Well, a few. Invest in yourself. Knowledge is essential for you to stand out. Always base yourself on data, facts, numbers, performance. This will will make you stand out professionally speaking, based on merit. So also believe in yourself. It's very important for you to believe in yourself, and for sure, help to promote other women in your area, give visibility, offer job opportunities, create growth, help, cooperate, teach, bring visibility to these women. It's very important.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've achieved a great deal in this industry already. Does it add to the feeling for you of responsibility that you have to be visible for the next generation?
I don't say I feel a responsibility to be visible, but I do feel a responsibility to drive change.
Mm.
The previous generation opened doors so I could be here today, presenting, being recognized, and having a voice. So for me, it's about paying that forward and helping create a future where the next generations, and that includes my daughter, who is 3 years old, can be heard, valued, work in a safe environment, and not be underestimated.
Absolutely.
At this point.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. And I just wanted to sort of finish on just a few sort of quick fire questions, just for a little bit of fun at the end of this podcast. I don't know if the word nerd is well used in Brazil, or geek, but what's the nerdiest thing about foam that genuinely excites you?
When you do a presentation or a demonstration of polyurethane foam, like for kids, for example, or for teenagers, they found very interesting because, oh my God, this is a mushroom, and then you do a quality control in a cup. Oh my God, now I can have a pillow, or it's so soft and so comfortable and everything. So I would say I remember this kind of demonstrations and presentations, and that's what I remember for the first contact that I had with polyurethane foam.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a fun industry. I love telling my kids what things are made of polyurethane, and I happen to be having a conversation with my son who's 7 about the tires on a Tesla, that some of them have the acoustic deadening foam inside, and he now refers to a Tesla as being made from polyurethane, which I find quite cute. Small amount. Finally, Audrey, what are you most excited about working on next? What's the next big thing?
Well, it's hard to say because there are some
you
things
can talk about.
But I would say that I'm really motivated by making a meaningful impact on the industry. So I would like to help grow the polyurethane consumption. I'd like that polyurethane would be seen as a more sustainable and recyclable material. I would say honestly that what excites me the most is pushing boundaries, working on things that haven't been done yet. I would like to make a difference in our market.
Absolutely, and it's ripe for innovation, and there's some great work going on as you've explained through this last 45 minutes very astutely. So thank you very much indeed, Audrey. I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you, Stephen. It's been an honor to be here.
You have been listening to Polycast by UT, helping your business expand in all the right places. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll see you again soon.